In Algebra 8, we're going to look at a really important component, manipulation of formulae. Let's start with the basic distance, speed, time triangle that you guys will already have seen. You're telling me distance is equal to speed by time. And if we divide by s, distance over speed is equal to time. Or if we divide by t, distance over time is equal to speed. So here's three really basic manipulation of formula. One formula, three different ways, three variables, there's three different ways to write it. Now in algebra we say in terms of. That's distance, speed, time in terms of d, in terms of t, and in terms of s. So you should see that what that means is we're looking for d equals, t equals, and s equals. Now let's have a look at three questions that I want you guys to try. So pause the video, do the first one in terms of b, the second one in terms of y, and the third one in terms of z. Okay, hopefully you've given them a good shot. Let's see the first one's solution. 2b is going to be equal to c plus 5. So b, how do we get rid of that 2? We divide by 2. C plus 5 over 2. So we need to know, to get rid of a multiply, we divide. To get rid of a divide, we multiply. To get rid of a square, we square root, and so on. The opposite of each other. What about y? If we bring the x across, 2y is equal to 5z minus x. So again, we're dividing by 2. Y is equal to 5z minus x over 2. I'm going to put a little squig through my z so they don't look like 2's. Now in this case, a little bit trickier. We have z in two different parts. So we want to take z out of those two parts. X is equal to z. Back to one of the basic algebra lessons that you've looked at. Z is equal to 2y minus 1. And you can see that that would give 2zy minus z. So z on its own, we can leave the z on the right. X is equal to x over 2y minus 1 equals z. Hopefully you've had success with those three. Let's look at some trickier ones. Okay, so write these three into your copy. Press pause, give them a go, and check the solutions. Okay, so I've put in a circle what we wanted in terms of. B for the first one, y, and then c. So let's look at this one. We want in terms of b. So we want to isolate this letter. We can definitely multiply both sides by 2 to get 6a is equal to b plus c. So b is equal to 6a minus c. Y in this case, but here it is, this little guy. Okay, we need to get rid of those fractions on the bottom. What's the lowest common multiple of 2 and 3 is 6. So let's multiply both sides by 6. And we write it like this: for 6 times x over 2, you know that's going to be 3x is equal to 6 multiplied by 4y plus z over 3. So you know that this is going to give you a 2. This 6 and this 3 will give you a 2. And this 6 and this 2 will give you a 3. And you can do that in one step when you get really good. Try not to skip too many steps until you know you're 100% confident. So what have we left with? 3x is equal to 2. I could write 2 bracket 4y plus z, but we can multiply the 2 by the 4y to get 8y. And by the z to get 2z. We want y on its own, so bring the 2z across to meet the 3x. 3x minus 2z. And you could write over 8 at this point when you get really good too. So I'm putting in the extra stages just so that you guys can see everything that you need to do before you get to y on its own. Okay, what about the third one, c? Here it is. Again, we need a number to multiply by to get rid of all these guys on the bottom. So what's the lowest common multiple of those three guys? Well, it looks like 10. So if we multiply everything by 10, you can see that this is going to just be multiplying a by 5. 10 over 2 is 5, but put the 10 in at the beginning to show the examiner or your teacher what you're doing, and it will eliminate error. Now these cancel just to give me 1, these cancel to give me 5, and these cancel to give me 2, or divide. So the first one becomes 5a. Then we're left with minus 2 times 3b, which is minus 6b, equals c. And we wanted c on its own, and we have c on its own, so it works out quite quickly. What if we wanted a on its own? What's a equal to? 5a will be equal to c plus 6b. So a would be c plus 6b over 5. And as you move on in the study of mathematics, you're going to get equations with maybe more than 3 variables that you will need to simplify down. So these are building blocks to more difficult questions. Now, write these 6 questions into your copy. Test yourself. Remember, the opposite of square root is squared. You're going to need to square it. We've got algebraic fractions to simplify. So give these a go. Press pause, and hopefully you get all 6 correct. So here's the solution. Now we have 2 a's in here. This a represents area of something. We'll come to that in another topic. But we want to simplify in terms of the small a. So we've got that 2 on the bottom. Let's get rid of it by multiplying by 2, because there's a division of 2. So 2 big a's is equal to a plus b times h. 2 big a's is equal to ah plus bh. We want a on its own, so let's leave it there for a minute. 2a is equal to, well, 2a minus bh is equal to ah. So little a is equal to 2a minus bh over h. Algebraic fraction, we want in terms of f. So let's just look at the left hand side for now. You know, in the previous lesson when we looked at algebraic fractions, we're going to multiply these two. We're going to cross multiply v times 1 plus u times 1, and that's equal to 1 over f. Now if we cross multiply here, there's no addition signs in between the fractions, so we can cross multiply. F times v plus u is equal to 1 times uv, or just uv. So to get f on its own now, we can just divide by v plus u. So we're going to get uv over v plus u, or u plus v. This one here, p equals, well, it looks like we have p equals already, but hang on, there's this little p over here. So let's bring him across to meet the other p. P minus pq equals c. And you guys are going to factorize this for me to get p times 1 minus q is equal to c. So p is equal to c divided by 1 minus q. Hopefully you have 3 out of 3 so far. Okay, a, we've got a squared in here, so we're going to get square roots going on. In the next question we have square roots, we're going to get squareds going on. The opposite of each other. Okay, so let's get rid of that 2b from over here to begin with. 3a is equal to c plus 2b this time. So, oh, forgot the squared. So we want to divide by 3 just to leave a squared on its own. C plus 2b over 3. So now to get rid of the squared, we get the square root. A is equal to a big square root of c plus 2b over 3. And for a future lesson, we could also write that as the square root of c plus 2b over the square root of 3, because if there was a 4 on the bottom there, we could actually change the bottom to a 2. So just to be aware that the square root of a fraction, there's a square root on the top and the square root on the bottom if you want to simplify it, and we will see that in another lesson. Okay, now we want to get rid of the square root, so you're all shouting square that or. Get rid of the square root, pq plus q. What do we want? We want q on its own, so we're going to have to factorize that right hand side to get q out of those two things. What are we going to left with? P plus 1. And then we want q on its own, so just bring that p plus 1, divide across by p plus 1 to get q on its own. Okay, square root again, so we're definitely going to get squares. So a square both sides, we'll get rid of the square root on the left. A plus b over 2 is equal to 3 squared. You could write 9 if you wanted. A plus b over 2 equals 9. We want b on its own. A plus b has to be equal to 18, because 18 divided by 2 is 9, or you're identifying across multiply. So we want b on its own. B is equal to 18 over a. Hopefully you've got all 6 correct. I'm going to put another 2 for test yourself, so write these into your copy and then test yourself with the last 2. Okay, write these into your copies and pause the video. We want g in the first one and x in the second one. So I put this second one in just to show you how to get rid of a cube. If you get the square root to get rid of a square, you get the cube root to get rid of a cube. And we're going to see how that looks in a minute, but hopefully you guys have some knowledge of this already. Okay, so g. Well, if we divide by 2 pi to begin with, we get rid of the 2 pi on the other side. That's going to leave the square root of, this is L over G. We want G in its own, so we're going to have to square that left hand side to get rid of the square on the right hand side. So we're going to get T squared. Oh, well, actually, I'll write the whole thing to be squared to begin with. The whole thing to be squared, which is the top squared and the bottom squared from your rules of indices. That's equal to L over G. So let's write T squared over 4 pi squared. So when we have two things together to be squared, we square both of them. That's equal to L over G. So G times T squared is equal to L times 4 pi squared. We normally put the number before the letter. We'll do that now. And we want G on its own. So G is equal to 4 pi squared L over T squared. Hopefully you got that one right. A little bit longer than the other ones. And this one, we're going to get a cubic. So let's have a look. To get x on its own, let's bring the y across to w. 5x cubed is equal to w plus y. X cubed, we know we're going to divide by 5. X, w plus y over 5. And to write this, x is equal to, and you'll see this button on your calculator, w plus y over 5. And to write cube root, we put the cube there. Now, there's a 2 in maths that we don't see. There's not many 2's that we don't see. There's loads of 1's. Here's one here, 1x to the power of 1. But there's a 2 that we don't see in maths. It's actually a half. So square root is, there's a 2 in there. That's the second root, or the square root. There's a fourth root, which is equal to, let's say, that's x to the power of 1 over 4. And you'll know this from your rules of indices, x to the power of 1 over 2. And we're going to see this in another lesson. So hopefully you've gotten good at manipulation of formula. There's quite a few questions to practice. Go back and practice them again. Master this topic before moving on.